All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. So today we are going deep on something I'm sure you've heard a lot about, but maybe not in this way, the comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at Kristen Butler's book, The Comfort Zone, and she kind of flips the script on the whole get out of your comfort zone advice.
Right.
Like, what if instead of getting out, we focused on expanding it?
That's interesting because, so many of us are dealing with stress and just feeling burnt out these days. We're always pushing ourselves to do more and be more. And Butler's own story is really interesting because she went from being totally burnt out to actually thriving.
Yeah.
And it seems like that really shows how powerful it can be to rethink how we see comfort.
Yeah. And her argument that being uncomfortable actually makes us less resourceful.
Right.
So it's harder to reach our goals and actually feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
She even talks about having to drop out of college because of panic attacks.
Oh, wow.
And then pushing herself even harder, which she says put her in the survival zone. It makes you wonder if there's a better way,
Well, that's what she's getting at, right? Like, instead of always fighting against being uncomfortable, what if we made a space where we actually feel safe and peaceful,
Yeah.
and then we expand that space outwards? It's not like you're ditching your cozy little cabin in the woods.
Right.
You're adding on maybe a sunroom or a deck or even a hot tub. You're changing what comfort means to you.
I love that analogy. That really clicks for me. And it makes sense because when Butler asked people what their comfort zone meant to them, the top answers were things like safety, peace, love, comfort. Like, who doesn't want those things?
Exactly. We all want to feel secure and like we belong. And what Butler's saying is that maybe instead of seeing our comfort zone as this box that traps us,
Right.
we can see it as a space that we can actually shape and grow. It's like the foundation for everything else we want to do in life.
So how do we build that foundation? She talks about something called the CC pyramid, right?
Yes, the CC pyramid stands for safety, expression, enjoyment. And she really emphasizes that safety is the most important part.
Okay.
She uses this great analogy with a marble jar to show how important self-esteem and self-trust are.
Ooh, okay. Tell me about this marble jar analogy because I love a good visual.
So picture a jar, and every time you do something good for yourself or act according to your values, you add a marble to the jar.
Okay.
But when you push yourself too far outside your comfort zone in a way that feels fake or forced, you actually take marbles out.
Interesting. So it's not just what we do, but how it makes us feel about ourselves.
Exactly.
It makes me think about how we often push kids to do things that make them uncomfortable. And I wonder if that could actually hurt them in the long run, like taking marbles out of their jar.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Butler talks about how pushing kids and ourselves too far too fast can make us lose trust in ourselves. And there's a physical side to this too. When we're uncomfortable, our amygdala, which is the part of our brain that deals with fear,
Right.
it goes into overdrive. And that can actually make it harder to learn and be creative, which makes it harder to do the things we're trying to achieve in the first place.
Wow. So being uncomfortable actually works against us on a brain level. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So if safety is the base, what's the next level in the CC pyramid?
The next level is expression. And it's interesting when you think about how we express ourselves, it often depends on how safe and secure we feel. Like, think about someone who's really confident compared to someone who's really insecure.
Right.
The way they carry themselves, how they talk, what they're willing to share.
Yeah, it's like when you feel safe, you can just be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not.
Exactly.
But Butler doesn't just talk about the theory, right? She gives real examples of how people can use this in their lives.
Right. She tells a story about this woman named Sarah who got a promotion.
Okay.
You'd think that would be great, but she was really struggling to step into that leadership role.
So how did she get past that? Did she just try to fake it until she made it?
Well, that's where the idea of the expanded self comes in. Butler had Sarah picture a more confident version of herself, who she called Boss Babe Betty.
Boss Babe Betty. Okay, that name's kind of funny.
Right.
But I get what you mean. It's like trying on a new identity to see if it fits.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that by becoming this Boss Babe Betty, Sarah could figure out what was holding her back and start acting in ways that matched the role she wanted. It wasn't about being someone she wasn't. It was about finding a part of herself that was already there.
I like that. It's about empowerment, not forcing yourself to fit into someone else's mold.
Right.
So we've got safety as the foundation expression, building on that. And then at the top of the pyramid, enjoyment. This is where things get really interesting. Didn't she say something about enjoyment being our birthright?
She did, and I think that's a pretty revolutionary idea in a culture that often thinks we have to suffer to be worthy.
Right.
Butler's saying we don't have to give up our joy to achieve our goals. In fact, we're more likely to do well when we make enjoyment a priority.
That feels so true. And she gives some real ways to cultivate enjoyment, right? Things like fun engagement, gratitude, creativity.
Yes. She talks about how even small creative acts can change our energy and make us feel better. She tells this story about a friend who got herself out of a really bad depression just by playing the piano.
Hmm.
It wasn't about becoming a great musician. It was just about creating something beautiful that brought her joy.
That makes me think about how so many of us put off doing creative things until we have more time or more money or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe it's actually the key to finding more joy and fulfillment right now.
That's what Butler is suggesting. And I think it's a powerful reminder that we don't have to wait for things to change before we can start experiencing more joy. It's available to us right now if we choose to tap into it.
Okay, so we've gone through the EC pyramid safety at the autumn expression, building on that, and enjoyment at the very top. It seems like a really solid framework for building a fulfilling life. But I'm sure you're wondering, how do I actually use this? Well, Butler has a process for that too, but we'll have to save that for part 2 of this deep dive. Okay, so we built this awesome foundation with the SE pyramid safety expression, enjoyment.
Right.
But now you're probably thinking, okay, where do I go from here?
And that's where Butler's Create with Comfort process comes in. It has 3 steps: define, develop, direct. We've already done the define part by looking at how we see our comfort zone, realizing it's not about just being complacent, it's about having a strong base.
Right, it's like we checked out the house of our comfort zone. So now are we doing a total renovation with develop?
It's more like dreaming up the expansion.
Ooh, I like that.
This is where we imagine our expanded selves and the lives we really want, not just goals, but who we want to be in that bigger space.
I love that. It's like leveling up, but from the inside out.
Exactly.
So how do we get started? Do we need like mood boards and construction permits for our comfort zones?
Well, Butler suggests something called a comfort zone vision board.
Hmm.
But hold on, this isn't your typical vision board with random magazine clippings.
Okay.
It's actually pretty strategic.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this comfort zone vision board. What makes it so special?
Unlike those vision boards that focus on the future, this one starts by looking at your current wins and what you've already achieved.
I see.
Think about it. You already have a history of success, even if it's not in the exact area you want to expand.
I could see how that would be a good confidence boost.
Right.
Instead of starting from scratch, you're like, hey, I've done this, so I can definitely do that.
Exactly. It's realizing that you have the power to make your dreams happen because you've done it before, even in different ways. And then from that solid place, you start picturing the life of your expanded self.
So now's the fun part, right? We get to let our imaginations run wild.
Yes.
But Butler says we need to be specific, right? It's not enough to say, I want to travel more. You have to really picture what that looks like, which countries, what kind of experiences.
Exactly. She wants you to get those details in there. Imagine your dream home, the people you're with, the work you're doing. Make it real.
I could see how that would make it more achievable. But let's be honest, sometimes our biggest obstacle isn't not having a vision. It's that inner critic, you know? The one that says we're not good enough, smart enough, whatever enough. How does Butler deal with that?
She goes deep into the power of our self-talk. It's like, whether we realize it or not, we're always affirming something.
Right.
Might as well make it something that lifts us up instead of dragging us down.
Totally. Our words have so much power. I used to be so mean to myself, always criticizing and doubting. It wasn't until I started being kinder and more encouraging to myself like I would to a friend that things started to change.
And Butler gives some practical tips for creating affirmations that make you feel good. It should be positive in the present tense, specific, and most importantly, they have to feel good to you. It can't be something you force yourself to believe. It has to come from your heart.
So it's like rewriting the story in our heads, changing the narrative from self-doubt to self-belief.
Yes.
And I guess consistency is key here, right? It's not enough to just say these affirmations once in a while. We have to make them a regular practice.
Absolutely. It's about making those positive affirmations part of our lives so they become our default setting, our new normal.
Okay, so we've got our vision board, our empowering affirmation.
Yeah.
What about those big, messy emotions that can sometimes throw us off track?
Butler has a great analogy for this. She compares our emotions to the weather.
Okay.
Sometimes it's sunny and calm, other times it's stormy and rough. But the weather just is right. We don't judge a rainy day for being rainy.
I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Right.
Instead of fighting those stormy emotions, we can learn to ride them out, knowing that the sun will come out again eventually.
Right. It's about recognizing the emotion without letting it take over. And then from that place of acceptance, we can start shifting our focus to feelings that make us feel better.
So we're not suppressing emotions, we're just choosing which ones to focus on. That feels much more doable.
Exactly.
But what about specific triggers, things like jealousy, fear, anger? Does she give any advice on how to handle those?
She does. Butler provides ways to deal with those common triggers. It's not about pretending those feelings don't exist. It's about choosing to act from a place of self-care and compassion instead of letting those emotions control our behavior.
That makes sense. Because often when we react out of fear or insecurity, we just end up creating more of what we don't want.
Exactly. It's like you're driving and suddenly hit a patch of ice. You might want to slam on the brakes, but that's actually the worst thing to do.
Right.
You have to stay calm, keep your hands on the wheel, and gently steer back on course.
That's a great metaphor. So we've got this whole toolkit now, the SA pyramid, the comfort zone vision board, empowering affirmations, ways to navigate emotions.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need for this develop phase?
There's one more piece that I think is really important. Butler talks about this idea of competition, which is often misunderstood. I know this might seem weird in a book about comfort zones.
Yeah, when I hear competition, I usually think stress, pressure, comparison.
Right.
Not exactly cozy vibes.
Right. But Butler has a different take. She says competition can actually be inspiring and motivating when we approach it from a place of inner security. It's all about our mindset.
Okay, so it's not about avoiding competition completely. It's about changing how we see it.
Exactly.
But how do we actually do that?
She points out that when we feel threatened or insecure, competition can trigger all those negative emotions: jealousy, comparison, self-doubt. It's like we're trying to prove our worth, which takes us right out of our comfort zone.
It's like we're playing a game we can never win because the rules keep changing.
Right.
We're always comparing ourselves to someone else's standards.
But when we're grounded in our own value and worth, competition becomes something different. It's a chance to challenge ourselves, grow our abilities, maybe even learn from others who are doing amazing things.
So it becomes less about proving ourselves and more about expressing ourselves.
Exactly. And when we're coming from that place, there's no need for scarcity or comparison. Everyone can win because we're all playing different games.
I love that. It takes the pressure off and lets us focus on our own unique path.
Right.
Okay, so we've got this whole develop phase figured out. We're picturing our expanded selves, creating our comfort zone vision boards, making empowering affirmations, learning to deal with emotions, and changing how we see competition.
Yeah.
But there's something Butler talks about that always feels a little strange to me: momentum and surrender. How do those two things even go together?
It does seem counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Momentum means taking action, moving forward, while surrender sounds more passive. But Butler argues that embracing surrender is actually key to using the power of momentum.
Wait, so she's saying that by letting go, we actually gain more momentum.
Think about it this way. When we try to control every single thing in our lives, it creates resistance. It's like swimming upstream against a strong current. We tire ourselves out and barely make any progress.
I'm getting tired just thinking about swimming upstream.
But when we surrender to the flow, trust in the universe's timing, let things happen naturally, that's when we tap into a different kind of energy. It's like we're riding the current instead of fighting it.
Okay, that makes sense. But if we're used to struggling and striving, letting go can feel scary, right? Like, what if we lose control?
That's where trust comes in, and it's a practice just like anything else. It's about believing that even when things feel uncertain, we're being guided, supported, and everything is working out for our best in the end.
I think that's a message a lot of us need to hear. But there's one more thing I'm curious about. Butler talks about getting used to abundance, success, and ease. Why do we even need to get used to those things? Shouldn't they just feel good automatically?
You think so, right?
Yeah.
But it's like if you've been living in a small apartment your whole life and then suddenly you move into a huge mansion, it's going to take some time to adjust. You might even feel overwhelmed or out of place at first.
It's like going from a studio apartment to a penthouse suite with a rooftop infinity pool.
Right.
It's amazing, but maybe also a little intimidating.
Exactly. So Butler's saying we have to train ourselves to receive all the good that's coming our way. We have to expand our capacity for joy, abundance, success. And she uses a great analogy to explain this: skiing.
Okay, I'm picturing myself on a snowy mountain, ready to ski. How does skiing relate to expanding our comfort zones?
Well, you wouldn't just put on skis for the first time and go straight for the hardest slope, right? You'd start with the bunny hill, get comfortable with the basics, and then gradually work your way up to more challenging slopes.
Right. It's about respecting where we are and taking small steps rather than trying to force ourselves into situations that feel too much or not right for us.
And that approach works for any area of our lives: money, relationships, career. It's not about rushing to the end. It's about enjoying the journey.
This all makes so much sense. But there's one more thing I'm wondering about before we move on to the direct phase. How do we make sure our actions actually match our expanded selves? Is it all about willpower and discipline? Because honestly, that never worked for me.
It's not about forcing ourselves to do things we hate. It's about aligning our actions with who we really are and who we want to become. Butler calls these identity-driven actions.
Okay, so how do we make sure our actions are coming from that place of identity, not just from a feeling of obligation or should.
She says to look at your current habits. Are they helping or hurting your desired identity? It's like if your expanded self is a marathon runner, but you're currently spending all your free time on the couch, there's a mismatch there.
Right. It's about matching our actions to our vision, walking the talk, so to speak.
Exactly.
But that can feel overwhelming. Where do we even begin?
Butler suggests taking stock of your daily routines, your relationships, your surroundings, and ask yourself, do these reflect who I want to be? It's about making choices that help you grow and expand.
So it's less about adding a bunch of new things to our to-do list and more about making sure what we're already doing is in line with our goals and values.
And that can mean letting go of things that don't serve us anymore, too. It's a process of refining and adjusting as we change.
Okay, so we've explored this develop phase, picturing our expanded selves, creating our comfort zone vision boards, making empowering affirmations, navigating emotions, reframing competition, understanding momentum and surrender, getting used to abundance, and taking identity-driven actions.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot to take in, but I'm feeling pretty energized.
It is a lot, but it's also really exciting. And, we've only just laid the groundwork. The real magic happens in the next phase, direct. That's where we take all these insights and actually start using them in the real world.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's get our hands dirty and dive into the direct phase in part 3 of this deep dive. Okay, deep divers, we're back for the final act. We explored the SE period, we imagined our expanded selves in the develop phase, and now it's time to direct all that energy outward. You ready to make some magic?
Let's do it. This is where things get real. And Butler doesn't just leave us with good vibes. She gives us a plan for making our vision happen, starting with a big mindset change.
Okay, so what kind of mindset change? Because I'm all for upgrading my thinking if it means leveling up my life.
She calls it moving from a problem-focused mindset to a solution-focused one. Think about it. How much time do we spend thinking about what's wrong, what's not working, what we're missing? It's like we're programmed to be negative sometimes.
Oh, I know. I could totally get stuck in that loop, analyzing every problem to death, but not actually getting anywhere.
And that's exactly what Butler's talking about. It's like we're so busy staring at the flat tire that we forget we have a spare and a jack to change it.
Right.
So how do we switch gears and become more solution-oriented?
Yeah, because it's easy to say think positive, but how do we actually rewire our brains to see the possibilities instead of getting bogged down by the problems?
Butler gives us a 3-step process for developing that solution-focused mindset. Feel the problem, see the solution, and feel the solution. Sounds simple, right?
Okay, I'm with you so far. But walk me through it. What does she mean by feel the problem? Because my instinct is usually to avoid uncomfortable feelings, not embrace them.
I get it. That's what most of us are taught to do. But Butler says that resisting those negative emotions actually makes them stronger. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push, the harder it pops back up.
So it's about acknowledging those feelings, letting ourselves actually experience them without judgment. Is that what she means by feel the problem?
Exactly. It's about allowing the frustration, the fear, the disappointment, whatever it is, to just be there. Don't try to fix it. Don't overthink it. Give it space.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like once you acknowledge the storm, it loses some of its power over you. You can handle it knowing it will eventually pass. So once we've felt the problem, what's next?
Then it's time to see the solution. And this is where we use our imagination. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, we start picturing the best outcome. We create a vision of what it would look and feel like if the problem was solved.
So we're shifting our focus from what is to what could be. That feels way more empowering.
Right, and Butler emphasizes using visualization here. It's not just about thinking about the solution, it's about actually seeing it in our minds, feeling the emotions that come with it.
So if the problem is feeling stuck in a dead-end job, we'd picture ourselves doing work that we love, feeling happy and excited. We'd imagine the details, our perfect workspace, the kinds of projects we'd be doing, the awesome people we'd be working with.
Exactly. The more detailed and vivid the picture, the more powerful it becomes. It's like we're creating a map for our subconscious mind to follow. And then comes the last step. Feel the solution.
Okay, I think this is where the real magic happens. Tell me more about this feel the solution step.
It's about stepping into the feeling of the solution as if it's already real. We imagine ourselves feeling joyful, grateful, relieved, excited, all those good emotions that come with overcoming the challenge.
So we're not just thinking about the solution, we're actually feeling it. And that feels so amazing. It's like we're connecting those positive emotions to the outcome we want, making it more likely to actually happen.
Exactly. It's about aligning our energy with what we want to create. And, it's interesting, this 3-step process. Feel the problem, see the solution. Feel the solution. It can be used for any challenge, big or small.
So whether it's a huge life decision or just figuring out what's for dinner, we can use this to shift from problem-focused to solution-oriented. That's awesome. But there's more to direct than just mindset shifts, right? What other tools does Butler give us for this action-taking phase?
She stresses how important meditation is, and this isn't just some mystical thing. There's a lot of research now about the benefits of meditation for both our minds and bodies.
Yeah, I've been hearing more about that, but honestly, I've always had trouble with meditation. My mind just won't quiet down. Any tips for those of us who struggle with meditation?
Butler is all about making meditation easy. It doesn't have to be a big production. You can just sit for 5 minutes, close your eyes, and focus on your breath.
So it's about consistency over intensity. Like 5 minutes a day is better than an hour once a month?
Exactly. And you can fit meditation into your day. Meditate before work, before bed, while you're waiting for your coffee. It's about finding what works for you and making it a habit.
Okay, I can get behind that. So we've got mindset shifts and meditation. What else is in this direct toolkit?
Relationships are a big part of this faith, and Butler brings up this really interesting concept, gluminary relationships versus luminary relationships.
Okay, those names definitely caught my attention. Explain it to me. What are gluminary and luminary relationships?
Think about the people in your life. Do they drain you or lift you up? Gluminary relationships are the ones that pull you down, reinforce bad patterns, and keep you stuck in those problem-focused loops we talked about.
So these are the energy vampires, the drama queens, the people who always have something to complain about.
Exactly. And while we can't always cut those people out of our lives completely, Butler says we should be aware of the energy we're giving and taking in those relationships. We can set boundaries, limit our time with them, and choose to focus on the relationships that bring us joy and support our growth.
And that's where the luminary relationships come in, right?
Yes, these are the people who light you up, inspire you, and believe in you. They're your cheerleaders, your mentors, your partners in crime, the ones who remind you of how great you are even when you forget.
It's amazing how being around the right people can totally change your perspective. It's like they show you the best version of yourself.
And you know what's interesting? Butler says that as we expand our comfort zones and become more aligned with our expanded selves, we naturally attract more luminary relationships.
So it's like a positive cycle. The more we grow, the more we attract people who support our journey. I love that. Okay, so we've got the mindset shift, meditation, and building luminary relationship. Anything else we need to know for this direct phase? Because I'm feeling ready to take on the world.
There's one more thing Butler emphasizes, and it's about really owning that empowered energy. She calls it the power stance.
Okay, I'm picturing myself standing tall, shoulders back with a superhero cape flowing in the wind. What exactly is the power stance?
It's about having a mindset of unshakable confidence. It's about trusting yourself, trusting the universe, and standing strong in your truth. It's about letting go of self-doubt and embracing your power.
So it's not just about physical posture, it's about an internal shift, too. Like believing in ourselves and our ability to create the life we want.
Exactly. And Butler gives us some powerful affirmations to help develop that power stance. I am safe. I am guided. I am abundant. I am worthy. I am powerful. I am loved.
Wow, those are some strong affirmations. Saying those every day would definitely change my energy and make me feel more confident.
It's about feeding your mind with positive, empowering messages so they become your core beliefs. And from that place of belief, anything is possible.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We explored the S&E pyramid, imagined our expanded selves in the develop phase, and now we have a whole toolbox for directing that energy outward, the mindset shift, meditations, luminary relationships, and the power stance.
It's about taking all these insights and putting them into action, creating a life that feels aligned, joyful, purposeful, and bigger than we ever thought possible.
So what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this deep dive?
That the comfort zone isn't the enemy. It's not about staying stuck or being lazy. It's about creating a foundation of safety, expression, and enjoyment that we can use to launch ourselves into the most fulfilling, expansive, and joyful life we can imagine.
And remember, everyone, expanding our comfort zones is a journey, not a destination. There's no finish line. It's about constantly challenging ourselves to grow, change, and create a life that truly feels right for us.
So keep exploring, keep trying new things, and keep expanding your comfort zone in a way that feels good and true to you.
And if you're ready to go even deeper into this transformative work, definitely check out Kristen Butler's book, The Comfort Zone. It's full of even more wisdom, tools, and inspiration to help you create a life you absolutely love.
Thanks for being with us on this amazing journey. Until next time, keep shining bright.